to the channel, viewers. If you like this video, subscribe to JNS TV. Israel news from the heart of Jerusalem. Get the real story behind Israel and the Jewish world without media spin. JNS is the most trusted pro-Israel news source on YouTube, serving a global audience with bold reporting, insider access and the most thought-provoking journalists across Israel and the diaspora. We are currently syndicated by major outlets like Newsmax, New York Post, the National Post and 90 others. Subscribe to this channel if you like this video. Let's get on with it. Axis of Truth. I'm pretty sure I got this right. I'll just check. I'm pretty sure I've got it right. And let's just see.
Well, joining us now to discuss the Gaza situation from more of a non-Israeli perspective is someone I've personally admired for a long time, an Egyptian scholar and an advocate for peace, Dalia Ziyada. Dalia, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I want to start by just asking you a little bit about your background before we get into the realities on the ground in Gaza and in the Middle East. What were you taught about Jews, about Israel growing up in Egypt, and did that perspective change over time?
First of all, thank you so much, Emily. I'm so excited to be with you. I'm a big fan of you, and I watch all of your episodes, almost all of them, and I'm so happy to be a guest today on your show. So speaking about me, oh wow, how far can we go? Actually, but you know, I can start by saying it's not a secret that indoctrination in Egypt is very, very strong. Not only in Egypt, but in all Arab countries. And I was just like one of, like an average Egyptian child, an average Egyptian teenager who was educated that Israel is the enemy. The Jewish people are our religious enemies, and to be a good Muslim, you have to hate the Jews. I still remember very well that on every Friday in the Friday sermons in the mosques, in a holy place, supposedly, it was easy for the imam or the sheikh to say dua, which means prayers that curse the Jewish people on purpose every Friday. And in the media, always Jewish people are highlighted in a very stereotypical way as, you know, the evil people, bad people, stingy, you know, things like that. And even in our school textbooks, still Israel, not only the Jewish people, actually in the textbooks it was more about Israel politically, about the political position of Israel. Our schools, we grew up being educated that Israel is our historical enemy. They didn't mention, like in the primary school there is a lesson. It's so interesting actually, and it has continued to be the case until only a few years ago. In I think the third grade or so, you are being given a lesson, a whole unit about the 1973 war with Israel. And then it highlights Egypt as the victorious of this war, and Israel as like the aggressor, the bad guy in this story, and so. And then they tell us that Israel is our historical enemy. They didn't mention anything about a peace treaty or so, which is something we learn later in the middle school, later on, like, you know, that there is a peace treaty, but actually it's not a peace treaty. It's only a strategic agreement, you know? So after we take this lesson in primary school, like kids really, after we take this lesson, they take us to a museum in Cairo. It's called October Museum, or 6th of October Museum, which is the date of the war with Israel, the 1973 war. And of course, it shows us, like, you know, stories. It emphasizes these stories that was told to us in the textbook, that Israel is our historical enemy. Israel wants to hurt us. Israel wants to attack Egypt, and so on. So it's It's very difficult. It's very, I can understand when I look back now at my fellow Egyptians and how they are behaving. I can understand where they are coming from, actually. It's a very strong indoctrination against Israel.
So how did you end up changing your mind, or did you? I mean, what made you question maybe these people aren't actually our great immortal enemies?
Oh, thank God. Yes, I changed my mind, of course. I grew up believing all of this. By the way, I thought this is the truth because I didn't see any other truth. Until I was 18 years old, I was an undergraduate student, a freshman student in Cairo, or a fresh woman, like I want to call it. And at that time, it was the time of the second intifada. It was a big deal in the region, as you know, Emily. Like protests everywhere, especially in Arab countries. Ironically, they were tolerated by the regimes then. The regimes that wouldn't allow any type of protesting at all, they would welcome any protests against Israel at that time. So on my campus, there were protests happening every day against Israel. And later on, of course, I learned that the organizers of these protests are the Muslim Brotherhood, which is very interesting given the link between the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas, and that they have always been on a mission to whitewash Hamas. And these protests were fueled actually by footage from Al Jazeera, Qatar, which very similar to what we're seeing now happening on American campuses, European campuses. And so it's like a deja vu moment for me, honestly. So I was 18 years old, very, very naive, believing everything they have told me. And something cool is happening on campus, which is protesters. So I joined the protests. And after about 2 months of participating in these protests, and so something major happened. In one of these protests, the organizers, the Muslim Brotherhood, wanted to make a show. So they decided to burn some flags. They started by burning the Israeli flag, then the American flag, which was really a big question mark for me. I didn't know why they are burning the American flag, And then, see how naive I was, at that time. Then they burned the Egyptian flag.
Now this is where the Westerners are ignorant. All right, they've got no idea that these people are culturalized to the core for destruction. They're culturalized to the core. Now this woman was there and she was one of them, and then, hang on a minute, they're burning my flag, the Egyptian flag. Now how do you think we in Australia feel when we see these people burning the Australian flag on an Australian street, and we've got a government, Anthony Albanese, who thinks that's peaceful? It's not peaceful. Now this woman's just had in front of her flag burnt, the Egyptian flag. Let's see what happens.
And this, for me, exactly, you see how your reaction is? This was my reaction. This was like, something's wrong here. These people cannot be good people and at the same time burn my flag. We grew up learning that the flag should be respected, must not be insulted, and they are burning it. And why they are burning it? For Gaza? Why would I care for Gaza? I care for my country. So questions started to come into my head, and
what we've got to realise as Westerners, there's 3 border fences along the Gaza-Egyptian border. They're not going to have the Palestinians in there because they know that the Palestinians are culturally bent towards destruction. That's how they're culturally educated, to destroy. And so the Egyptians have got 3 border fences. Did you know that? Now, if you will, let me back that statement up. Satellite images reveal Egypt is building a 16-foot wall near its border with Gaza. So there you go.
Here's what the Egyptian border with Gaza looks like. Here's what the Egyptian border with Gaza looks like.
And did you know that Egypt, when they were building the border, destroyed hundreds of homes along the Gazan border? Did you know that? For example,
one by one, homes along Egypt's border with the Gaza Strip are being blown apart. Egypt's army used tanks and guns to forcibly evict around 10,000 people from the area, and dynamite and bulldozers to methodically destroy the homes they left behind. People had 48 hours to leave with the promise of compensation, but no right to resist.
It is a crisis. It's a catastrophe. They have been forced to leave for what? For only 300 Egyptian pounds every month. It's a disaster.
The land their homes had been built on is to become Egypt's latest line of defence against escalating violence in northern Sinai. Video obtained by Al Jazeera shows the aftermath of the most recent attack, one of the worst on the Egyptian army in years. At least 31 soldiers were killed in the car bomb attack on an army post on Friday. The Egyptian government declared a state of emergency in the border area, and it prompted the government to bring forward its plans to create a controversial 500-metre buffer zone. More than 680 homes will be destroyed to create the buffer zone along Egypt's 14-kilometre border with the Gaza Strip. The government says the area is being used to smuggle weapons from Gaza to rebels in Sinai. Hamas, which can...
Now that's interesting, isn't it? Because the Egyptians were allowing weapons to go into Gaza. Okay, so there's this bend towards evil within the different nationalities and cultures within the Middle East to profit. And here it's backfired on the Egyptians, but the Egyptians didn't muck around. You got 48 hours to get out. And if you're not out of the way, we're going to blow you and these properties up anyway, because we're going to put up a fence between you and us, because you can't be trusted. The Palestinians, the Gazans, whatever you want to call them, they couldn't be trusted.
Controls the Gaza Strip is accused of lending its support to fighters in Sinai who are angered by the removal of Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi in a military coup last year. Hamas denies the accusations. The former UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has implored Egypt and its forces to respect the rule of law.
I think the situation is much worse now in terms of the lawlessness.
And what did Egypt say? You can go and get stuffed. We're going to protect ourselves from these people, whether you like it or not. They didn't offer them food. They didn't, I think they offered them some sort of money for the destruction of their houses, but they were going to make sure that there was going to be no more threat to their nation. Now, why is Israel having to feed the Palestinians and all this stuff? It's just so out of order. But anyway, back to what this lady's saying.
And societies. How to do that? By claiming authority over these individual Muslims and introducing themselves as the most knowing and the leaders of these Muslim communities, and thus use the numbers and in the name of these Muslims and in their numbers, they go and approach policymakers in these Western countries and influence them. And this has been the game for so long. And by the way, this is part of a plan written by the early founders of the Muslim Brotherhood in the West. This plan is called the Project, and it has like a follow-up plan to it. It's called the Explanatory Memorandum of the Muslim Brotherhood Plan in North America. And in both documents, they speak about infiltrating the West through exactly dominating Muslim minorities. And guess what is their tool in dominating Muslim minorities and rallying support to their evil ideology in Western societies from among non-Muslims? Guess what it is?
I would guess the universities.
No, the Palestinian cause.
These days, the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. So
From the Egyptian woman, that the Palestinian cause is the way that they're infiltrating the Western world. They're going to turn the Western world on itself through the Palestinian cause. Isn't that so true? It's happening in Australia right now. We've got a government with an ideology and bend towards the Palestinian cause. They've even gotten to the stage where Benjamin Netanyahu has sent a letter to Anthony Albanese, our very weird and evil, I'd have to say evil. There's something missing somewhere in his mind with the way we're losing our allies. He's got no idea on where we're headed. He doesn't seem to be conscious of where the country's headed. But he is, from his university days, been a pro-Palestinian protester. So there you go. If your leadership's got a bend towards favouritism to the pro-Palestinian cause, then they're actually colluding in some way or another, whether they're aware of it or not, and supporting the Muslim Brotherhood and what they're going to do to destroy the country that they've infiltrated in, which is ours, the UK, France, all these leaders that think they're helping Palestine. I'm surprised at how ignorant they are. They just seem to be completely uninformed or have some kind of screw loose in which they can't see that they're actually helping Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood, who's the head of the serpent, to find their way into their own countries. And then they think they've got the right to tell Israel how to fix theirs. It's bizarre. It's evil. It's wrong. And that's modern ignorance for you.
it is the Palestinian cause, the so-called Palestinian cause, which means different things to different people. If you say, for someone in the West, when they hear the word the Palestinian cause, they think it is about giving Palestinians rights, about giving them a state or so. But the reality is, for those who are fighting for the Palestinian cause, including Arabs, including the majority of the Muslims who are adopting this, including even the Free Palestine movement we are seeing all over the West today, all of them, they don't talk about building a Palestinian state. All they are talking about is destroying the Israeli state. This is what they are obsessed with. And until this obsession is removed, they will remain running in the same circle. And unfortunately, the main beneficiary from this is the Muslim Brotherhood and radical Islamist organizations that use this for their advantage, of course.
Now, let's talk a little bit about Gaza. We know that Egypt has kept Gaza at arm's length for decades. And as you know, people love to shout about Israel, but they never seem to ask why Egypt doesn't help Palestinians, even with a 10-foot pole. What is the attitude of Egyptians toward Gazans? I mean, is there more that Egypt should or could be doing?
So yeah, actually, it's so interesting what we see happening among the Egyptian public in particular, because the position of the Egyptian government, I understand what they are doing. They love to play the old game of bringing up the Israeli-Palestinian conflict every time there is a big failure on the domestic level, economic failure or political failure, in order to distract the people and show them that there is a problem on the border. If you try to, for example, rebel against your government or so, this problem will come into Egypt and you yourselves will be in trouble. So I know the game that the government is doing, but the general public, when we look at the general public, I wouldn't say they are having a state of hypocrisy, but actually I believe it is genuine schizophrenia. It's really schizophrenia. Where it is coming from, one side has to do with the indoctrination they grew up having, from the Nasser era to the Islamist era later on, when the Islamists were the ones responsible or having the bigger influence on the general public. The Palestinian cause remained the main topic. They relied on or they have been indoctrinated with, you're responsible to fight for your Palestinian brothers and sisters. They are dying, Israel is killing them, you have to save them, and so on. So they grew up believing that they have this responsibility, they have this duty towards the Palestinians somehow. While so ironically, they don't have the same duty towards the Sudanese on our southern border. They don't have the same duties towards the Libyans on our western border, but it's only towards the Palestinians. I don't know why, but this is how we were told. So this is one half of the schizophrenia. The second half of the schizophrenia has to do with the lesson that they have learned over years, that when Palestinians move in masses to any other territory, to any other country, they wreak havoc in this country they move to. This happened with Jordan, this happened with Lebanon, and they know that the Palestinians are troublemakers by nature. They are people who were raised on this idea of martyrdom and victimhood, and they adopt violent resistance as their identity and ideology. It has become their identity, actually. Think about it for a moment. Violent resistance, the use of violence, has become part of their identity, to the extent that a mother would be willing to give away her child to die in the ranks of Hamas, just because she believes she's doing something good by letting him fight against the Jews, who did not hurt her. By the way, these Jews could probably have maybe cured her from diseases, or cured one of her relatives from a disease, or provided her with aid during COVID-19 or whatever, but still, she's on a mission to make babies and send babies to the ranks of Hamas in order to kill the Jews.
And that's called Dhamma. If you do your homework, that's called Dhamma. They try and breed you out, and while they're trying to breed you out, they're using these children that they bring into the world to destroy you as well. It's very, very evil.
This is dangerous if being exported to Egypt or exported to any other country. So Egyptians understand that. So they care for their national security, but at the same time, they feel that, we have the duty to protect our Palestinian brothers and sisters, but also our national security. We want to live in peace. We don't want this problem being imported to us.
Now what you're looking at here is a tunnel that they found on the Egyptian border. I think there was a couple of these, big enough to drive vehicles through. So this is the schizophrenic side of the Egyptians and the evil of the Middle East. On the one hand, they want to keep the Gazans out of their land, but on the other hand, they were supplying all sorts of armory and whatever they could for profit into Palestine. IDF finds tunnels large enough for vehicles to drive through in the Gaza-Egyptian border area. According to military, the tunnel was around 3 metres by 10 foot tall. 3 metres wide, 10 foot tall. It was located along the so-called Philadelphia route last week as part of efforts to uncover all of Hamas's infrastructure. The tunnel was being investigated by combat engineers before part of the efforts to uncover Hamas, etc. Dozens of tunnels have been found along the Philadelphia corridor, including at least 25 standard ones. Hezbollah is a global terror organisation that possesses a global threat. Their ongoing aggression and attacks are dragging the region into a wider escalation. The IDF spokesman Radam Dada, he explains the IDF's readiness to defend Israel civilians on all fronts after recent events. But again, I just wanted to show you the picture of this tunnel that they found on the Egyptian border. That's the schizophrenia of the Middle East. She said it. It's a mental illness. On the one hand, they want to keep these people out, and on the other hand, they're just supplying them what they need.
Are living with this internal conflict all the time. That's why you will see these contradicting positions being taken by the people, the government, and also the military.
Now, when it comes to the Gaza war, I mean, what do you see as a solution, or is there even a solution in your view?
So actually, I'm very much pro what's happening right now. If we look, we have given Gaza is very complicated. Gaza in particular is very like this 360 square kilometers is the most complicated territory on planet Earth. Why? Because there are so many players playing there. And there is no one that has the proper leverage over these players to force them on adopting peace as a solution. So if we wait to expecting that Hamas, a terrorist organization, a designated terrorist organization that has been practicing terrorism since its establishment until today, without shame and without hesitation, it's impossible to expect that this organization just overnight will change and become peaceful and will come to an agreement with Israel. Actually, one of the things that most of the people don't know is that the word ceasefire that Hamas uses freely and claims that they are calling for ceasefire and so on, does not even exist, not in their terminology and not in their ideology. There is nothing in Arabic, by the way, called ceasefire. If you want to translate the word, you need like an entire sentence to translate waqf, itlaq, al-nar, an entire phrase. There is nothing called ceasefire. Why? Because in the Arabic culture and the Islamic culture, there is no ceasefire. And in Hamas ideology, there is no ceasefire. The only thing they know is truce. Truce, which is hudna, which means basically, let's take a break so we can rearm, regroup, and catch our breath, and then come back and kill you. This is truth. So this is what they are calling for when they say we want to have ceasefire. So Hamas, forget about Hamas. Now, what options are we left with? The Palestinian authorities or Arab countries? Palestinian authorities, we all know, are very corrupt. They are not the solution. They have been involved in terrorism. They have been also supporting terrorism for so long. Their ideology also, although it is on the left side, not an Islamist one, but mostly leftist, but still is centered around the idea of annihilating Israel, of removing Israel from existence. Yes, they are willing to do political maneuver, like from time to time, in order to preserve their seats and so, but actually they don't mean it. They don't mean to live in peace with Israel. And we saw the Oslo agreement. I mean, it was a historical moment, a great moment for first establishing a Palestinian state, second living in peace and bringing the Middle East to peace. And who broke it? Not Israel, but the Palestinians. The same Palestinian Authority. It was Yasser Arafat then. These same people. So we learn from history that the Palestinian Authority is not the solution. So neither Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority. Now who's left? The Arabs. The Arabs don't want to be involved. They like to do all types of rhetoric about supporting a Palestinian cause, about supporting a Palestinian state, about even supporting peace with Israel and all of that. They do rhetoric, very well written rhetoric, but no action, nothing on the ground, nothing is happening in reality. When you call for them to go into Gaza, for example, send some, train some troops into, train some political leaders from among the Gazans who are against Hamas, and so they say, no, we are not going to enter Israel on the backs of Israeli tanks. Okay, fine. What are you like? They don't want to be involved. Long story short. So the Arabs, I don't expect they can do much inside Gaza. So the only solution we are left with is what's happening right now. That Israel is going to take over Gaza for a while, release the hostages, help build a new government inside Gaza. I don't know if you can call it a government, but some kind of leadership inside Gaza from among the Gazans who reject Hamas, from among the Gazans who reject this violent resistance ideology and this idea of martyrdom, and that they are on a mission from birth to death to fight against Israel. We need to find these people, and they do exist, by the way. I know some of them. They do exist, and we saw in the past few months there were protests against Hamas led by these people. So we have an opportunity here, but for this opportunity of peace to happen, force or strength have to precede it. And this is what Israel is doing right now. Israel is doing the force and the strength needed to lay the ground for this long-lasting peace to exist. Of course, people don't like this, and people are criticizing Israel for doing this. But believe me, in, let's say, 20, 50 years from now, the people who will come after us and will look at our time and see what Israel did, they will say, yes, Israel did the right thing at the right time, because there was no other solution. All the other solutions will be just reinventing the wheel and leading to the same old failed results that we are paying its price now.
1,500 people a day. Do the maths, that's over 500,000 a year. Add student and temporary visas onto that, and it's even higher. Now ask yourself this, who's paying for all of this? Because it's not Canberra, it's you. And here's the kicker, we're already in a housing crisis. Yet every single day, more and more people keep flooding in. Something is up. And I'll tell you exactly what it is, because this isn't about immigration policy. It's about covering up the government's economic mismanagement. They're broke. They've maxed out every single credit card they have. And instead of fixing this mess, they're just importing more taxpayers to keep the system on life support. I say this all the time. We are drowning in debt. $900 billion worth, forecasted to be 1.3, 1.4 by 2029. And instead of fixing this mess, our government has chosen the worst possible avenue. And let 15
And this is what I've been arguing personally, as you know, for a very long time now. The Albanese government criticises Israel so strongly that it energises the aggressive pro-Palestinian activists. It effectively fans the flames of anti-Semitism. Now, Albanese can't, in all good conscience, blast Israel in one breath and call for calm on this issue on our streets in the next. He sets the tone. This is why he is directly responsible for the anti-Semitism crisis we're all experiencing, because it affects everyone. The preschool that was firebombed wasn't Jewish. This is crime and lawlessness and aggression and hate, and even the chance of terrorism slogans on our streets that are meant to be peaceful. Albanese and Penny Wong could have chosen to temper their language, temper their assaults on Israel in the interest of public safety. This government constantly forgets that its primary duty is to keep all Australians safe, not solve the wars in the Middle East where they have no influence and no knowledge anyway of what's unfolding. Albonese's only trip to the region, as far as I'm aware, was in 1998, organised by the Palestinians. He doesn't know what's going on there. He doesn't understand the issues or the history. He's an activist. Now, I'm so pleased to see both Netanyahu and Gideon Saar standing up to the Albanese government publicly and reinforcing this important message that they are fueling anti-Semitism with false accusations. And the cancellation of Simcha Rothman's visa was the last straw. He was meant to arrive today for a Jewish solidarity visit. He was speaking at schools and synagogues. His visa had been approved on the 8th of August, but then early yesterday morning, he found out it had been cancelled. And not just that, he'd been banned from entering Australia for 3 years. If you missed it, here he was on my show last night.
And I saw that I am being blamed not for any controversial comments that I made, but on ideas and comments that are accepted by wide consensus in Israel. That Hamas is bad and Israel is good, that anyone who wants to side with the good should be with Israel. So it's not against me, it's against the state of Israel. I saw many people in Australia chanting in the streets, from the river to the sea, Palestine would be free. I did not see the government of Australia doing anything against those messages.
He is part of Netanyahu's governing coalition. He's a far-right MP. Now, not everyone in Israel or all Jews agree with his right-wing views, just like not everyone in Australia agrees with conservative politicians here. But not agreeing with someone's views is certainly not a reason to ban them from our country. And even his political rival, Benny Gantz, made this point, saying Rothman and I have stark political and ideological differences, yet Australia's decision to bar him from entry is not only deeply misguided, but blatantly hypocritical. If only Australia fought the ravaging anti-Semitism targeting its Jewish communities with the same fervour, it banned representatives from the one and only democracy in the Middle East. And opposition leader Susan Lee made a similar point today.
Well, I really regret the way that the relationship between the Albanese government and the government of Israel is deteriorating.
Now, I've read the entire document that supposedly justifies, cancelling Rothman's visa. And it points to some mildly controversial remarks he's alleged to have made in media interviews. Now, I'm going to tackle the most controversial. He is alleged to have said that Palestinian children are enemies. Now, that sounds pretty terrible. So I went and found the interview where he's alleged to have said it. I'm going to show it to you now. Have a look.
Mr. Smotrich, your leader, has said that the people of Gaza should leave, that the aim is to get them to leave.
It's a combat zone. When there is a combat zone, when there is a terrorist organization who is hiding behind civilians, you should let them run away. And if you are blocking them, you're aiding and abetting a terrorist organization, using them as human shields. That's not a moral thing to do. And if the United Kingdom want to be a humanitarian country that cares about human rights and human lives, they would help the Gazans who wants to leave the area leave and not aid Hamas to use them as human shields.
I've got an idea. Why don't you let them come over the border into Israel? Why don't they flee into Israel?
Because they are our enemies. Because they are
the children are your enemies?
They are our enemies. And according to international treaties about refugees in the time of war, you don't let them conquer your country with refugees.
So that there was the most controversial comment Simcha Rothman is alleged to have made. And as you heard, what he was suggesting is that the United Kingdom take in the innocent civilians from Gaza, the innocent Palestinians. And the journalist said to him, well, why doesn't Israel take them? So that is the context in which he was saying this. He didn't openly come out and say Palestinian children are the enemies. He was arguing the reverse point. He was arguing that the United Kingdom should be taking the civilians from Gaza. And his point, more broadly, is that other nations should be doing that as well. Now, of course, Israel can't open its border to allow Palestinians in during the war. And by the way, none of the neighbouring Arab nations are doing this either. Egypt could easily open its gates for Palestinian women and children, and it should do this. So because of that comment that Israel isn't opening its border even to children, and it was the journalist who said the word enemies, not him, he's not allowed into the country. That was the worst comment cited in the document. Now, the Home Affairs document also points to completely uncontroversial remarks, such as that Israel is not to blame for the suffering in Gaza and that Hamas is the enemy. The document says that Rothman's statements, and I quote, mirror the policies of his party, including the elimination of Hamas. Wow. Of course he wants to eliminate this murderous terrorist group. What right-thinking person would not want to get rid of Hamas? Well, apparently some official in Home Affairs.
That might be Anthony Albanese. Well, Anthony Albanese has to take responsibility for this, doesn't he? It's his government.
And so Home Affairs concludes, again I quote, specifically I consider his presence in Australia would or might be a risk to the good order of the Australian community or a segment of the Australian community, namely the Islamic population.
Well, that's not good enough for the common civil Australian who values their allies. This is obviously, again, the pro-Palestinian bend that this government's got. This is the bend that they've got towards these political views. It's crazy. They're not running the country by Australian standards. They're running them on activist views. It's disgraceful.
And they say that he could make inflammatory statements promoting controversial views in Australia that could cause division in the community. Now, this is a bit...
That's a bit rich given what Anthony Albanese's doing to the country himself.
Rich, because look who is causing division in Australia at the moment. It's certainly not the Jewish or Israeli communities.
Just let me say, this is Anthony Albanese and Penny Wong's lot. This is their mob at work.
Right, so an event like that, the Prime Minister Albanese describes it as peaceful and takes no action. Yet Albanese government ministers are apparently worried that an intellectual parliamentarian from Israel might disturb the peace as he quietly speaks to Jewish schools and synagogues. Now, remember this woman who applauded the massacre of October 7 and then was given a visa? Well, after the Herald Sun put her case on the front page, her visa was cancelled. But Tony Burke claimed that it was only cancelled because she'd been issued the wrong type of visa.
Before we even got to the character grounds issue, she wasn't eligible.
Tell this guy's a career politician grub. That's all he is.
For the visa that had been issued, and the department administratively cancelled the visa.
So the wrong visa was issued. No strong words against Mona Zahed, the woman who thanked Allah for keeping her alive long enough to witness Hamas's attack on Israel. No strong words from Tony Burke at all. Nothing to see here, just the wrong type of visa issued. But then look at the statement Tony Burke issued about why he cancelled this Israeli politician, Simcha Rothman's visa. He said our government takes a hard line on people who seek to come to our country and spread division. If you are coming to Australia to spread a message of hate and division, we don't want you here.
Well, there goes Anthony Albanese's pro-Palestinian radicals, 90,000 of them on the Harbour Bridge are to go. According to this grub, that's what I'm going to call this bloke, an absolute liar and deceived grub who panders to his leaders, climbing an invisible ladder that he's going to fall off in front of everybody. These people don't represent the common civil Australian. They're representing an ideology that they've picked up from a pro-Palestinian fanatic, a covert one by the name of Anthony Albanese. Socialists. Anyway, I'm going to shut this down in a minute.
It's not even a question that the Home Affairs Minister of Australia comes down harder on peaceful Jews than he does on Hamas-loving aggressors. And this is precisely why we have such a problem of social cohesion in this country. And thankfully, now, tonight, Netanyahu has called it out for the world to see.